Welcome to Lair of the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another in a series of what I call milestone moments. These are moments in a band's career where everything comes together and they release their most iconic album. Or maybe it's the last album to feature a classic band member. Or maybe the band would just go off in a different direction after this album. So the band that I've picked for today is Metallica, and the album is their 1986 metal masterpiece, Master of Puppets. Some people, or lots of people, would say that this is one of the greatest metal albums of all time, and I wouldn't be one to argue with them about that. At this point in Metallica's career, it was their third album. They released their first album, Kill 'Em All, to much acclaim. They came storming out of the gates, caught everyone's attention with their fast, aggressive sound, their take of the new wave of British heavy metal dialed up to 11. And then they took a huge step after that when they released Ride the Lightning, that features many of their classic songs, like For Whom the Bell Tolls and Fade to Black. But for me, it's their third album where Metallica would reach their peak and release their masterpiece. This album was recorded by Flemming Rasmussen. And for me, the mix is just perfect. The guitars are real thick and heavy. You can hear the bass, the drums, everything's in its right place. And the overall album has sort of a darker feel to it to my ears, which I just love, and in my opinion, it fits the songs perfectly. Also, I think on this record is really where they honed in on their sound and what made them Metallica, their strengths. And it doesn't feel like there's a wasted minute on this whole album. Everything is just perfectly placed. I never feel like, when is this song going to end, or feeling like things go on too long, which would be a complaint I would give to the album that would follow this, and Justice for All, where in my opinion it rambles on a little bit at times. The mix also on Injustice for All is not the greatest, with no bass and the drum sound. But here, everything is just dialed in perfectly. It starts off with the powerful battery, the strumming acoustic guitars at the beginning, and then that heavy aggressive riff kicks in. James Hetfield's barking style of vocals, to me, this is James. His voice was sort of growing through the first two albums, and to me, on Master of Puppets is really where he found his voice. Next is their legendary Master of Puppets. This is one of the greatest albums of all time, and a lot of people would say Master of Puppets is one of the greatest metal songs of all time. It is just an absolute classic. It's got killer riffs all over it. It's catchy. In the middle of the song where it drops down and it gets melodic and mellow, and then there's that chugging build-up part into the Master. Absolutely epic. Just perfect the way that song ebbs and flows and builds back up again. Just fantastic songwriting. Next, The Thing That Should Not Be. Amazing song, super heavy. Even the songs on this record that might be considered deep cuts are still just absolutely killer. And I'd also like to mention the lyric matter that Hetfield covers on this record. It ticks off all the boxes that a metalhead wants. It's got the supernatural type things, monsters like The Thing That Should Not Be. It's got war type things like Disposable Heroes. It's got just the aggressive lyrics like in Damage Incorporated and Battery. It covers it all on this record. Next is another epic, Welcome Home Sanitarium. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Fade to Black, but maybe it takes it even a step further. Starts off with the plucked guitars and another song that just builds so well until it comes charging in at the end. Just great. Disposable Heroes, like I mentioned earlier, the subject matter about innocent people's lives being taken away in war. And it's just got a super aggressive riff through the whole thing. It's super tight, and I love the way the song ends, and then that riff just kicks back in again for a few seconds. Just great. Leper Messiah, super heavy chugging riff, and then Orion. This is the instrumental masterpiece of the record, almost like a classical piece with all its different sections. It should also be noted that this was the last album with Cliff Burton. And for me, this is really Cliff's song when I hear this. All the different sections, the way he arranged the harmonies with the guitars and the melodies, the way the bass comes in playing that ostinato thing when it gets quiet, and the distorted bass solo in this. After this record, Cliff would tragically die on tour, and in my opinion, he might be the X factor of why Metallica was never able to reach these creative heights again. Maybe it was his balance of Hetfield and Ulrich and Cliff in the middle there that really took Metallica to this next level, and Orion is perfect proof of that. It is an amazing instrumental. And then the album ends with the super fast, super aggressive Damage Incorporated. I love the way that it does that whispered vocal, Damage Incorporated, which just makes it sound all the more intense and all the more extreme. Just a super great way. I love the way Battery it comes out charging, is a super fast charger, and Damage Incorporated is sort of the same way to sort of bookend this album. So like I said, in my opinion, this is Metallica at their peak. Yes, they will go on with the Black Album, and that will be their biggest selling album. But from a creative standpoint, they never really reached this point again. And Justice for All, though I like that album, for me it feels a little unfocused and a little forced, and then the mix really throws it off. Here on Master of Puppets, everything just works. Everything just comes together. It is maybe a flawless heavy metal album. So, for me, this is the milestone moment for Metallica, Master of Puppets. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.